You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. How we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Another wonderful Tuesday night. We are, I guess, almost halfway through, right? Like, it's kind of that weird spot because of the odd number of games, but there's 18 weeks now, so we're not quite for the weeks, but most teams have played half their games, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I'm doing good, man. We are in the thick of it. We are in grinding season, and there's definitely some leagues that I am in full grind effect, and there's some others where I feel a little bit better about myself, and I know you're kind of in the same situation, but hey, that's why we're here, right? To help everybody grind it out and make that push towards the playoffs to help win cash and trophies.
There's a few of my leagues I've already said, you know what, it's time to pack in this season, and we're going full rebuild in a couple of these dynasties already. So it has gotten to that point on some of these things, but for fantasy purposes, we are fully in the back half here. Week 8 kind of marks that official first start of the back half of that, because you're going to be running through about week 14 and then starting the playoffs in most cases there. It's definitely been a fun one, definitely been a good one. You and I had the matchup there in the home league. So we've got some things moving and shaking there as well. And it's certainly kind of, it's one of those that on some of these aspects, it's you've got an idea of what your team really looks like. And some of them, for instance, in one of my leagues, I've got it where I had a team where literally my first 5 draft picks for the first half of the season were not very usable for me. And so, now starting to get some guys healthy. So we're starting to see some things kind of turn around, guys starting to catch on, right? Like DJ Moore had a massive sighting this last week, helped out by a huge bomb at the very end of the game. That definitely kind of boosted that up a little bit there as well. But definitely very interesting. The trade deadline happened today. That was a lot of moving and shaking going on. And, the Broncos, were doubly active on there, right? They traded away Bradley Chubb, got some picks back, Chase Edmonds back. They got, they went out and acquired defensive end there. And you got some teams out there that went out and moved a lot of fantasy players that are, may have some relevancy here as well. TJ Hawkinson was on the move, and I think that's actually a better landing spot for him in Minnesota rest of the season than where he was going to be at Detroit. But there's a lot of moves that kind of took place that was a little shocking, a little surprising. Normally with the NFL trade deadline, it comes and it goes, and you maybe saw a move or two happen. Not this year, though.
Yeah, it was interesting. The Bears giving away all these defensive assets, and then they go blow a second-round pick on Chase Claypool. I thought was interesting. It speaks to what they kind of think about their wide receiver room. I'm hoping what that means is Darnell Mooney continues to be more effective, right? Claypool can help take some of that pressure off, because both of these guys are talented. Both are kind of really number 2 wide receivers. Neither one really plays that X role. But I do think it helps keep teams off of Mooney consistently all game long, to give Fields a deep shot down the field to Mooney a little bit. So I'm hoping that helps. Jeff Wilson Jr., right? Kind of the early season, not necessarily darling, but definitely a fill-in, right? After Mitchell went down. And then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, he went from being the starter to being traded, and did absolutely nothing wrong other than just the talent pool around him got so much better. Right. Elijah Mitchell's really close to getting off the IR, I believe. Is that right? Right? Yeah. Elijah Mitchell's coming close to getting off the IR. Christian McCaffrey's dominating what that room is going to look like. So Jeff Wilson found himself down in South Beach with his old buddy Raheem Mostert. So that'll be interesting to see how that dynamic shakes up, since Edmonds went to Denver. We expected Brandon Cooks to possibly be on the move. That didn't come to pass. We expected Cam Akers to possibly on the move. That didn't come to pass. I don't think we're going to see Akers suit up for the Rams ever again. Like, I think the reports that are coming out of LA, he really wanted to get moved for whatever reason. It's just not good. And I don't think he's going to play in LA ever again. So we'll see if they just release him or if they're just going to make him inactive every single game and then find something to do with him in the offseason. So more defensive moves, obviously, on top of that. But, those are kind of the fantasy relevant moves. Obviously, the Hawkinson deal.
Naheem Hines also on the move too.
Naheem
like
Hines
that was
I thought that one's kind of interesting. Like, how frustrated are they with James Cook that you bring in Naheem Hines?
Right. As you spent early draft capital on James Cook to go in and bring him in. And Naheem Hines, but Indianapolis also getting Zach Moss back. So Buffalo, got off the Zach Moss experiment, who they also spent early draft capital on that running back as well a couple of years ago. And so it's kind of interesting because now you almost get, kind of a merger of what James Cook's skill set really is, what Devin Singletary has done well for them lately, and kind of mix that all together with a single guy in there with Naheem Hines. So very interesting move there. Indianapolis also recently getting rid of their offensive coordinator. Like, there's a bunch of moves that and some of these things kind of went unnoticed with some of the bigger deals kind of happening here on the trade deadline here, but definitely very interesting, some maneuvers and shakings going on out there, and some things that we thought were going to, teams were going to go out there and do. They certainly didn't, right? Like, a lot of folks expected the Packers to go out there and try and get a guy, bring him over to the wide receiver room. And they didn't. Teams that we thought might be trying to go out and get a piece, they didn't. Other teams that you thought they'd be pretty set, pretty standing pat on that one, they went out and added talent and added guys around them, and definitely a bit of an arms race going on in several different aspects across the league. So it's going to be very fun for the kind of the back half of the season here. Certainly the back half of the fantasy season here as well. So
yeah, it's little moving and shaking, right? Obviously the Tony deal, right? So we saw Kadarius Toney go also, which we'll kind of see how that shakes out now that the Chiefs are done with their bye week and back in action. I picked him up in a couple leagues, where I'm starving for a little bit of receiver help. During the draft, right? I thought, receivers so deep. And now that we're into the season, I'm going, where the hell are all my receivers? Like, right. I definitely probably underestimated the drop off a little bit. I think players like Hollywood Brown getting hurt didn't help, right? Bateman being a non-factor and now being hurt haven't helped, that type of deal. So Debo being out last week and then on a bye this week, great for regular football. They still got the win. Hurt a couple of my fantasy teams, right? Cooper Kupp's going to be day-to-day with that ankle injury. That could possibly hurt, depending on what that looks like. So, it's ever evolving.
Right. And that's the thing that it seems to be with receivers. While it's deep, it's one of those, you almost have to try and pick your spot on a specific week and take your shot there instead of necessarily getting a lot of these season-long plays out of guys, which while it's really deep, it's so deep to the point where, you aren't able to necessarily get, there aren't many set it and forget it guys out there.
Right.
Yeah. And so you're going to have to just play the streaming case in a lot of cases. And that's, there's several leagues that I'm kind of going through that now. And my wide receiver rooms look completely different than they did on draft night. And it's very interesting to look back at that and think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Devontae Adams, another bust game. Golly, did the Raiders look terrible against the Saints. But then you had, like you said, you had DJ Moore come up with a second consecutive week. Like, PJ Walker has found a way to get DJ Moore relevant. And
Terrence Marshall.
Yeah, this is what we've been asking for, right? Terrence Marshall has been a ghost for so long, and they move on from Robbie Anderson. Sorry that for some reason those words are hard to put together. And DJ Moore's active, Terrence Marshall's getting involved. Like the Carolina Panthers are competitive. Like, holy smokes. Like, is PJ Walker really better than Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield? Like, have they had the guy there and they've just been ignoring it? So, Jamar Chase, another guy who was down, right? Like, so it's attrition. We've been talking about this, but we're trying to get through it. But you definitely had the benefactor of DJ Moore in our home league game, and really it kind of came down to touchdowns, right? I mean, right. You had touchdowns from dang near all of your guys, even with Andrews going out early who didn't get one, but everybody else made up for it, and it was just crazy. And while I had yardage and statistical decency, I guess is how I'm going to rephrase it to kind of get there, I didn't have the touchdowns, right? Joe Mixon, crappy game. I hate the Bengals right now for what they're doing with Joe Mixon. Stevenson, very solid performance, no touchdowns. St. Brown, decent-ish performance, no touchdowns. Jefferson, no touchdowns. But there was a Kyle Pitts sighting, guys.
Right.
I played Kyle Pitts and it paid off for me. Like, it was just, it's a wonky week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this thing plays out here going forward, as well. And we're going to be going through this every week, going through and helping you guys find some ways to bring along the cash and the trophies for you. And again, one of the best ways to contact us and follow along with some of this stuff is over on the socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. Best way to support this independent podcast is to go to the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, ring the bell, and all that good stuff. We're making that march toward that 1,000 subscribers, and appreciate everybody that has subscribed and everybody that's going to subscribe when they hear me ask you to go do that. So thank you very much for that. Jaden, welcome back to the chat, sir. And Jaden saying that thanks to us, he put up 228 last week in a half-point PPR. That's a solid week. That is a very solid week, sir. Nice job.
Yes, congratulations. That is an amazing week. Good for you.
I like it. I like it a lot. And again, guys, right, we are heavily into going to be going through Mailbag, going to be going through all of that. So you have questions, comments, all of that stuff, throw them in there. Let's go ahead and get them in the chat. Let's go ahead and get talking about these things. Let's get you guys ready to rock and roll and ready, set to, go out there and win some more weeks and keep making that march towards the playoffs here. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of movers and shakers going on there. But Kevin, let's go ahead and hop into a little bit of some waiver wire action here about some different options, things like that. I know Leadership Lessons, who is in the chat, has been every week asking us about a streaming option for tight end. So I'm sure they probably have that question out there, and we'll go ahead and rock and roll through some of those things there as well. But who's some guys out there to potentially target on the waiver wire? Who should we be looking at? Some guys that maybe we need to be moving on from and dropping. What are some of your thoughts out here?
I think long-term, Evan Ingram is a guy who has been producing for the Jaguars week in and week out. He's still in a decent amount of waiver wires throughout all platforms. So he's a guy to be looking at. Isaiah Likely, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we expect Mark Andrews to come back, but if for whatever reason they decide to shut him down for a week, right, and just help him make sure that he gets healthy. Their bye week is week 10. So if you shut him down here, you get 2 weeks for the price of one, and you can really kind of make sure he's shored up for the home stretch. So Isaiah Likely, if you have the bench space, or really if you're a Mark Andrews owner specifically, mm-hmm. he's a guy that I would target and try and make room for, at least for this week, right? You kind of see where that goes, and then you see how the reports are through. And if you drop him next week during your bye week, so be it. He served his purpose. Mike Gesicki is a possible streaming option. I don't love the matchup with Chicago, but it's something to be on the lookout for. And Logan Thomas is another one going up against Minnesota, who's been probably their most favorable matchup that defense has given up this year is against tight ends. So Greg Dulcich, if he's still on your waiver wire, he's another one. So I think of those guys, you should be able to have a pretty decent streaming tight end option this week to help you kind of plug and play here. Well, Dulcich is on a bye this week, but if you're thinking ahead, Dulcich would be a guy that you could get on a bye week where people aren't looking at him because he's not at the top of the projected score list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Greg Dulcich is a heck of a rest of season candidate. Really, he's played in 3 NFL games here. And so weeks 6, 7, and 8. For anybody out there keeping track, he's put up the 3rd most points at the tight end position in weeks 6 through 8 there. So absolutely, he's a guy that needs to be rostered, needs to be on that deal. And if you've got that, like that's a nice little piece to kind of add onto your bench there and go that route, especially if you've been streaming it. So leadership lessons, I know every week you've been asking us for a streaming tight end. That's your guy to go out there and pick up. And like Kevin just said, nobody's looking at him because he's on a bye this week. And he's also not rostered in a ton of leagues out there. You look at it right now, he's only rostered in about 38% of leagues. So yeah, that's a guy that's available in more than 60% of the leagues out there. Go get him, put him on your roster, and away you go.
One last guy to look at, Brock Wright, who most people are scratching their heads going, who is Brock Wright? Brock Wright is the new starting tight end for the Detroit Lions. And while that's not necessarily the sexiest play, he's going to get first crack at the reps and a more consistent time on the field now that Hawkinson is gone. So yet another guy, he's going to be further down the list. People aren't going to know who he is. But if you're in a deeper bench league, he's a guy that's probably worth a stash just to see how it shakes out. If you're in a shallow bench, then I think you probably wait that one out and look at other waiver moves that are probably a little bit more necessary than this one.
I like it. Blurpay over on YouTube saying, you need to go with James Mitchell for the Lions. That's his friend. I mean, who knows? Maybe if that's your friend, you've got some inside info there. But there's definitely going to be a changeover at the tight end position there with Hawkinson leaving town. So, if you're needing something there, there's some dart throws right there. And I think both of you guys make some, you have some good points there. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at, some other types of positions out there. I'll kind of throw some names out here, and you just tell me if you think that they're worth a stash, worth a pickup out there. Tyler Algier has been getting a fair bit of run out there in Atlanta in kind of a run-first offense now. Any desire to really go out and add a Tyler Algier?
Yeah, I believe so, right? It's a run-first offense. He's been having, I think, as he gets used to this rookie NFL season that he's in, we're at the midway point. I think he's worth the stash as long as Cordell Patterson's not back in the mix. Once Patterson is, I think Algier kind of loses some of that shine, if you will, because believe it or not, the Falcons are in first place of the NFC South, and their schedule down the stretch is pretty stinking favorable, guys. They have one game remaining with a team that's currently over 500.
All right. They get to play Carolina again here in 2 weeks, and we just saw them have a good game there against Carolina. Kyren Williams, a lot of talk coming out about him. He's a guy that I've been kind of actively targeting here. He hasn't come back off of the IR yet, but a lot of buzz kind of circulating around Kyren Williams. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Kyren Williams, it's a deep bench play, right? I thought he'd be a little bit more active. Now, I think a lot of that was game script. And I think part of it is the Rams just do a terrible job running the football. Like, that team is just set to drop back and pass 50 times a game. So you're not going to see that many run plays. And between Kyren Williams and D'Angelo Henderson and the guy they called up from the practice squad, now I can't remember his name. I apologize.
Was that right?
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to pull up his – man. This is so bad for the podcast. Anyway, I'll get back to that. Rivers.
Yes, that's right.
Ronnie Rivers. So you might be looking at more of a 2A, 2B type situation. And again, it's game script dependent, and the Rams suck at running the football. So I do think I'm kind of backing away from that. Last week, I was a little bit more excited about the opportunity, knowing that the situation with Cam Akers wasn't getting any better. Now I think I'm kind of fading it because I don't like the run game situation at all.
All right, fair enough. Wide receivers, some guys to take a look at and just see if they are available out there. Romeo Doubs, probably worth a look at there, see if he's still out there. Kadarius Toney is a guy that, if nothing else, is worth picking up, scooping, doing as a stash, see what happens there. I find it interesting that when he was with the Giants, could never seem to shake that hamstring. He's traded to Kansas City, and almost instantly you see Andy Reid say that he's healthy and he's going to be worked into the offense there. Wan'Dale Robinson, the guy that's coming off of a bye this week, but a potential stash there going down there as well. So some guys to kind of look at and keep an eye on going forward there as well. And if you guys have questions about specific ones, let's go ahead and hit those ones up there. But Kevin, I do see some chats, some comments coming in the chats here. Any other thoughts on any waiver wire guys we need to look at, or are we ready to answer some questions?
No, let's answer some questions. I'll come through here and see if there's anybody I left out on accident.
I like it. Blurpy on the YouTube. My team is Hurts at QB. Running backs, he's got Cook, Kamara, Etienne, Antonio Gibson, Derrick Henry, and Pacheco. Wide receivers are Pittman, D-Hop, Amon-Ra, Wan'Dale, and the tight ends, he's got Waller, Taysom Hill. Any trade ideas? It's a PPR 10-team league, records 4-4. Sounds like just traded Terry, Lockett, and Foreman for Henry. 2 flex leagues, so I can run with Cook, Kamara, Etienne, and Henry all together. And at that point, I think you're set as far as wide receivers go as well, right? You can easily run out there D-Hop, Amon-Ra if Indianapolis actually gets a good matchup there, or you see Pittman start to kind of take shape there again. It's not a bad wide receiver room there. Tight end's really kind of the only thing that you need to maybe address there, and I would be looking to see if Dulcich is on your waiver wire there. Because if he is, I'd be picking him up and probably dropping Taysom Hill to pick up Dulcich.
Yeah, in a 10-man, you should be able to pick up a better tight end. Darren Waller experiment needs to be over for this season. Shut him down. I mean, you keep him on your roster. He's not a guy that you want to drop and have him come back and beat you, but you want to find a better starting option week in and week out. They're just not looking his direction. So I'd agree. Give up on Taysom Hill. It seems like Andy Dalton is the guy that they're going to run with. And while, yes, Taysom Hill is going to have that random game where he does have 27 total yards and 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, whatever he had a few weeks back, those are so hard to pinpoint. You'll lose more weeks gambling on that than you'll win for sure. So I would be looking at a bit of more of a consistent tight end play here going forward.
Yeah, I would. That's my thoughts on that as well. But overall, I very much like your roster construction there. I think you're set up really, really well heading down the stretch here towards the playoff push.
One more waiver wire, Josh Palmer.
Yep, and we actually had
the LA Chargers is a guy I forgot for wide receiver. So, yeah, oh, there you go, Jaden. Good. I wasn't even reading the chat script when I pulled that up. So yep. I'm glad that we're thinking alike there, Jaden. Keenan Allen's expected to be back, still listed as questionable with the hamstring injury. Mike Williams has the high ankle sprain. He's going to be down. So Palmer is still going to be involved, now in a slightly different way. Keenan Allen runs different route concepts than Mike Williams does. So now Palmer's going to be able to kind of run behind Allen, and he's going to become more of that big play threat that Mike Williams can be for that team, because that's not Allen's game anymore, right? He is a intermediate route runner. He runs the quick slants, some deep ends, definitely some comebacks, some quick outs. That type of thing is what Keenan Allen's really good at these days.
Right.
And inherently, with Allen back in the lineup, I do think we're going to see Justin Herbert passing more than, well, maybe not passing more because he does pass the ball quite a bit, but he'll be looking to drive the ball down the field a little bit more because he really, really likes Keenan Allen.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see too how the Chargers utilize that as well, because the depth chart is wonky right now, right? Like they need Josh Palmer to come back, clear the concussion protocols, be able to rock and roll it that way. And at that point, you may see that where Keenan Allen, who's been kind of playing a lot in the slot lately, he may get bumped out more so to an outside receiver than what we've seen him play over the last few years. Where you see Josh Palmer running on the outside, you see Keenan Allen running on the outside, and you have DeAndre Carter, playing more of a slot position, slot role, receiving option on that one. So it's very interesting there, and something worth keeping an eye on there as well. Alrighty. Let's go ahead, and we got some more questions coming in here. Gator J on that one. Contender, 10-team, 1 QB. They get Dak and Gallup for Trevor Lawrence, Rondale Moore, and a 2023 third rounder. Thoughts on this one? And with it being a 2023, so this is a dynasty, so it's got a little bit more of those implications there.
I'm okay with it. Lawrence is slowly starting to put it together, and I saw a lot of people bagging on Trevor Lawrence, saying, is his clock already ticking for when the Jags give up on him? Again, the Broncos defense is really good, guys. Like, I understand how bad they are offensively, but the Broncos defense is good. And Trevor Lawrence was able to move right down the field at the beginning of that game and find Evan Ingram and put the Jags up 7-0. The Broncos made better defensive second half adjustments than the Jags did. And that's what determined the game. So I'm okay with it. I'm not the world's biggest Rondale Moore fan. As soon as Hollywood Brown comes back, he's relegated to that third wide receiver in that offense. Gallup, as bad as these last couple weeks have been, is still kind of getting acclimated to Dak Prescott again because it had been so long since the two of them had really played together.
Right.
I continue to think that will improve, so I'm okay with this. And if it doesn't pan out, it's a 10-team league. Surely you can find something if you just want to give up on Michael Gallup at some point.
Right. A couple of things there, because I've also heard some of that chatter that the clock ticking on Trevor Lawrence. What I would tell you is that teams realistically, you need to give a quarterback three years at least before you're going to try and move on, especially when you spent that much draft capital on them. Reason being, right? Like you sit there and you think about some of these guys that people were talking about clock ticking, all of that kind of stuff. Did they really make a mistake in the drafting these guys, that kind of stuff? Josh Allen was a guy coming off of his second year, going into his third year, that, he needs to step up. He needs to do, this, that, and the other. And there was some chatter going on about his clock ticking after 2 years, right? Lo and behold, right? Like that's your best fantasy quarterback out there. Jalen Hurts, another guy that we heard some of that this last year, that the clock was kind of ticking and that we needed to see him take a step forward, and he needed to do all these things as a passer to step up. And he's done that, right? Like, first of all, we need to take last season and the debacle that was Jacksonville and throw it out the window and basically give Trevor Lawrence and most of the players on that team last year a pass on that one. You had bad coaching, you had bad organizational development going on. You had an organization that was just a complete dumpster fire. So take last season, throw it out, really start it this year. And we have seen Trevor Lawrence under Doug Peterson take steps, and we've seen flashes on this, and I think that that's only going to continue, and we're going to see that start to take shape, more so to the point where we see him start to develop into the prospect that everybody kind of thought he was coming out. Anyway, my 2 cents. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think so. All right. Gator J also asking, Kevin, how you feeling about the Dogs being ranked at 3 tonight? And you got a big game this weekend for sure.
It'll clear up this weekend. The Ohio State Love Fest is almost as bad as the Notre Dame Love Fest. And I understand if you're looking at strength of opponent, why Tennessee to this point is number one, but the only true challenging road game they've had was early on in the season against Pitt, and that game went down to the wire. And we'll see how it sorts out this weekend. Georgia's favored by 8, I believe, last time I looked. I'm not sure if I, want to subscribe to that necessarily, but these people in Vegas get paid for a reason, so they obviously think that line's good. But it should be a good game all the way around. I'm interested to see how well they can slow down that offense and what they learned from what Alabama failed to do against Tennessee, because these defenses between Bama and Georgia are eerily similar, right? Kirby Smart and Nick Saban have a lot of the same philosophies. That's been part of what Georgia's success has been. But getting into Saturday, it'll sort itself out. Georgia wins that game. They're going to catapult up to number 1 in week 2. And then we'll move on from there, because these next 3 weeks, they'll get it sorted out. Tennessee, Kentucky, Ole Miss, they win all 3 of those. They'll be sitting at 1, cruising into the SEC championship game.
Right. And that's the thing with the college football playoff. All you got to do is make the dance, and crazy things can happen. And you make the dance, you win 2, and you get to raise a national championship there. So Jaden asking thoughts on Najee with a more favorable schedule for rest of season.
Fingers crossed, Jaden. I traded for Najee 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, about there.
4 weeks ago. One of the leagues we're in, one of the league mates was really, really struggling at quarterback. So I packaged a deal together and asked for Najee instead of Dameon Pierce. And to this point, I feel foolish for doing that. But, I was reaching for the stars and they agreed to it, at least what I thought at the time. So the problem is the Steelers' offensive line's still terrible. Like, the schedule is more favorable. Kenny Pickett's going to get more accustomed to it, the NFL game. But they need Najee to be just a thumper and grind these games out. He just isn't the dynamic breakaway runner that, this upper echelon of elite backs are. He doesn't receive the ball out of the backfield the way that Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, or Austin Eckler do. So not that he has to fall in the end zone, but he has to see 18 to 22 touches a game to really put up fantasy relevance at this point. And right now he's only seeing about 14 or 15 because the Steelers are a negative game script and they're not running the ball in the second half. They're just dropping back and chucking it, trying to stay in.
Yeah, I would agree with that there as well. One of the other things to keep a note on it, it's kind of gone, people have kind of forgotten about that too, is the fact that during the off season, Najee had that foot injury and kind of that mid-foot injury, and I don't know that he's 100%. Kind of watching him play, doesn't quite look like the same back we saw last year or in his days at Alabama, and some of that could be the fact that he gets the ball and he's got he's got a mountain of defenders around him as he gets to the line of scrimmage. So some of that could be, but it also just looks like he's not necessarily able to hit a hole and go like we saw last year a little bit. And I wonder if some of that is as he tries to change lanes, tries to pivot, tries to make some cuts there. If that foot's not still kind of bothering him there a little bit, not enough for it to show up on an injury report, but enough that, it's still causing him to be a half step slower than what we've seen. So that very well could be part of it too. But yeah, let's hope that we see Najee return to, where you drafted him and start getting some value for you in the back half. Spear IT saying, what's up? Sorry, I'm late. Spear IT, always a pleasure to see you in the chat. And I see you and Jaden and Gator J all talking about the college football. Love it down there. We got MJ23 saying, what's up? Not much, MJ. We just talking a little bit about some foosball there. And Spear IT is saying, start Justin Fields or Tom Brady. I think I got to start Justin Fields at this point.
The way I like Fields' matchup this week, right? So Tampa Bay is going up against the Rams. Fields gets Miami at home, and the way Fields has been running the ball has just been causing problems, right? I mean, they're doing more designed runs for Justin Fields. They brought Claypool in, and he at this point he's more dynamic. I mean, he's more fantasy fun, right? Like you always think Brady can pull it out, but I do think that at least for this week, you're playing Fields. I like the matchup against Miami more, and his ability to use his legs and try and hit a couple of these deep shots to Claypool or Mooney than what I've been seeing out of Tom Brady here lately. It's just not been good in Tampa Bay.
Right. And Tom Brady's actually been doing all right as far as yardage goes. All right. He's putting up there in the upper, 200s kind of week in, week out, but the touchdowns aren't there. And it has certainly hurt what you've seen him do week in, week out. And it's just not, equating very well for fantasy for you. Each of these last, we've seen 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games there, and 3 of those last 4 games he's finished at quarterback 16 or lower. So it's tough to kind of, get on that one and be, gung-ho about that. Whereas Justin Fields is certainly the ascending player there. Justin Fields has had in the last 3 games, top 10 finishes each of those weeks there, and has yet to break 200 yards passing. In fact, has only 1 game all season long where he has over 200 yards passing the ball, and he's a top 12 quarterback this season. So getting it done with his legs, finding a way to get in the end zone, doing those types of things. Like, I'm going to start Justin Fields until we start seeing this Tampa Bay offense start figuring out a way to put the ball in the end zone again. I'll take the Justin Fields getting it done with his legs.
Cosign.
Alrighty. And Gator J saying, Kevin, great answer. Thanks, both of you. You're most welcome. MJ asking Ken Walker versus Arizona or DeAndre Swift versus Green Bay. I think I've got to take Ken Walker here until we see DeAndre Swift get back to 100%. And you even saw that this last game where he said that he wasn't 100% there, definitely affecting some of the carrying, some of the workload there. And I believe the press conference I saw recently with Dan Campbell was also saying that DeAndre Swift doesn't seem to be full go yet again, isn't back to 100% yet.
Yeah, cosign. The way that Dalvin Cook just gashed Arizona, I think Ken Walker can do something similar. And at least be productive on the ground, bounce back from a subpar game against the Giants. So I like Ken Walker this week.
Right. And the matchup's more favorable against Green Bay, but you're going to see a good workload with Jamal Williams in there as well. Ken Walker is not having to fight off, DJ Dallas or Travis Homer. So MJ also asking D Carter against Atlanta or Josh Reynolds against Green Bay. I think I lean the D Carter route on that one.
I'm going to go on the Reynolds route.
Okay. So a little bit of a split decision there for you. Part of the reason I'm taking Carter is the matchup is more favorable going up against Atlanta. There's a good chance, like I said, that he's going to play in the slot on this one. Heavier volume for that one there as well. Any thoughts on Jay Reynolds for Green Bay?
I think a lot of that Green Bay coverage is going to be slid over towards trying to stop Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, Jamal Williams, the revenge game factor, right, going up against his old team. We'll see if Swift is healthier. And the fact that they just got rid of TJ Hawkinson. So the targets that were going his way, I don't think are all going back to that tight end position. I think they're going to get spread out a little bit. And Reynolds has been just serviceable enough that I think that they will be able to try and take a couple shots here, see if he gets one. But Carter isn't a bad option. I was actually just combing through one of my deeper leagues right here where we have to start 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes of DeAndre Carter or Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the Toney route just because I like Kadarius Toney. Like I fell in love with what he did against the Cowboys last year, and I've been really good about not playing him this year until he kind of showed me again. But now that he's with Patrick Mahomes, hope springs eternal. So here we go. Kadarius Toney's back in, and I'm going to hope he sneaks into the end zone just to kind of stick it to the Giants.
Right. And I remember when we were doing the draft class that Kadarius Toney was in some of the dynasty stuff in there. And then, after you watched that Cowboys game, you were all in on Kadarius Toney there. It was something to behold there for sure. Alrighty. MJ, Garrett Everett versus Atlanta, Evan Ingram versus the Raiders.
Everett. Atlanta's pass defense against tight ends is god awful. Yes, the Raiders just got smoked, but it didn't really come out of the tight end position. Ingram has been serviceable. I do think that is a good option for sure, but for me, Everett's the call this week.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Gerald Everett's kind of been that darling and one of the dark horses that we mentioned before the season, that he had the ability to sneak up there and be a really good tight end for you. And I'm going to stick on that train there. Although Evan Ingram has certainly flashed and done some good things there. Evan Ingram's still my guy on this one. Jaden saying on the Najee deal, Najee just needs to put his head down and run instead of looking for holes, which won't be there. You could be on to something there. Could also be too that the Steelers start shutting guys down here and start giving some backups some more run, things like that. As they start looking towards next season a little bit with some of the things they've got going on and some of the holes, the roster, all that kind of stuff. MJ, would you start Donta Foreman versus Cincinnati? Depends on what the rest of my roster looks like, to be perfectly honest with you. But
yes,
we just saw Nick Chubb run all over Cincinnati. Well, I think they probably get better, and they've been decent against the run there. Donta Foreman's been looking good.
Yeah, Foreman's been looking good, and like you said, we just saw Nick Chubb just gash him. Like I would like to think that Cincinnati's defense responds a little bit, but Foreman's had 2 really good weeks back to back. And I don't see there any problem with you playing the hot hand if that's the option that you have, right? I mean, if you have Saquon, right, and that's who you're looking to replace this week, then Foreman's a solid start. I mean, I think he has upper end RB2 potential. Ceiling would be floor end of RB1, as we saw. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
So he could touch RB1 status, but definitely has a really solid floor for you this week.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, MJ, this is a decision I'm trying to make in the home league, right? Like, do I start Donta Foreman? Do I start DeAndre Swift? Obviously, Swift has the higher draft capital. He's got Green Bay's been very forgiving against the run there, but I think I'm probably going to lean the Donta Foreman route myself over DeAndre Swift, just simply from the standpoint that DeAndre Swift's still a little bit banged up. We just saw Donta Foreman come off a monster game. Even if Chuba Hubbard is back, ready to play, I still think that Donta Foreman's going to get the first and second down work and the goal line work. And I think that you're going to see Chuba Hubbard be the third down back and the spell back. So that's kind of the way I'm leaning to kind of give you an insight on how I'm looking at that. Start Donta Foreman or Mostert. And Spear IT telling us thanks for telling him to start Foreman last week. It certainly paid off.
I'm glad it helped you, buddy.
Yeah.
I love to hear that it helps you guys. I mean, because obviously these are moves that we're contemplating ourselves being in a variety of different leagues. So it's glad to know that's paying off for you guys. So hopefully we can keep that trend.
So in this one here, are you going with Donta Foreman or are you going with Mostert?
I'm going Foreman again.
Okay. Like this one's close to me. I think yeah, but I'm going to still lean Donta Foreman, right? I'm going to lean the hot hand there. I'm going to ride the hot hand and go that way. Miami's been throwing the ball, chucking the ball all over the place. And I think that Donta Foreman will have more opportunity. Raheem Mostert or Jay Will. So Raheem Mostert versus Chicago, Jay Williams versus Green Bay. I think in that case, I probably lean the Raheem Mostert, I think.
I would agree. I'm leaning Mostert by a hair, and I do think that that's because in the second half, Miami's probably going to have not a huge lead, but just trying to keep Chicago at arm's length. They'll keep mixing in the pass, obviously, but I do think that Mostert will continue to be involved there, especially for this kind of first week as Jeff Wilson gets acclimated to Miami. I think Mostert will see a larger timeshare this week than Williams will with Swift continuing to be healthy or get healthier.
Right. And to be completely transparent with you, MJ, I think that you're going to see these guys, at the end of this week, probably be within a point of each other. Like, this is not going to be a large gap, a large deal. You're probably going to see them where Raheem Mostert outscores Jamal Williams by like 1 point would be my kind of where I'm planting my flag and making that call there. So it's going to be an extremely extremely close there, extremely tight. I don't think that you've got a bad play with either one, but I would lean the Mostert. Spear IT, I think one of the biggest problems with Najee is Jaylen Warren takes so much snap share compared to last year when it was just Najee as the undoubtable running back one. And Jaylen Warren's looked pretty good. He's looked pretty spry when he's got the ball in his hands. So that could be right. Like, and that was one of the things that we were saying last year and going into this season is that part of the big reason that you saw Najee have such a big traction, such a good game out there was the simple fact that he had such a workload. He wasn't an efficient back by any stretch of the imagination, but he had enough volume to be fantasy relevant. It was very similar to James Robinson his rookie year. And even last year, to that point, once ETN was no longer in the picture, that those guys just got enough volume that they they volume their way into fantasy relevance and fantasy production there. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think you're right. I think that we did not anticipate Warren taking so much of the snap share. Part of it could be the foot issue. Part of it could be, that they didn't want to wear down Najee like they thought he could have been worn down a little bit towards the end of last season. But it's going back from a question with earlier, and do I think Najee is going to be better with kind of a lighter schedule here at the end of the season? If the Steelers are out of it, just completely out of the playoff push, I do think that hurts Najee a decent amount because they're not going to keep trotting him out there for an extended amount of time when they can put Warren out there, see comparable statistical output from him, and they don't have to, worry about their number one back getting hurt.
Right. Save some tread on the tires, so to speak.
Yes.
Alrighty. And then Aaron Rodgers versus Detroit or Geno Smith versus Arizona. Aaron Rodgers certainly has the more favorable matchup, but I still think that I'm going to lean the Geno Smith route this week.
Like
Detroit's awful against the pass, as awful on the defensive side of the ball. I just don't know that I trust the Packers offense at this point to be able to put up enough points to do it.
I think Geno Smith's probably the right play against Arizona here. I wouldn't fault anyone for wanting to give Rodgers kind of one last ride against a bad Detroit defense. But man, Geno's been so damn consistent. I'm taking Geno. I just think you're safer with Geno. Rodgers, they could decide just to run it down the throat and make sure it's an A.J. Dillon game, right? Kind of get him right going through the rest of the season and not have Rodgers throw it as much this game. So I think with Geno, Geno's going to drop back and throw. DK appears to be healthy. Lockett was out there doing his thing last week. So is Geno by a hair.
Right. They're close. They're certainly close and tight there. All right. You know what? We're going to hit up the Pine and Shine results here real quick from last week. And then we'll come back and answer some more questions before we get into the Thursday night preview here. So, Kevin, we got the Pine and the Shine preview for our review from last week. So, Pine, Alex was calling for Tyler Lockett to be a Pine. Certainly outperformed his production there. And Alex took a loss on that one. Kevin, who'd you call for your Pine?
My Pine was, my Pine for last week was Aaron Jones. That was a big miss. I thought the Bills would do a better job shutting him down, but he had 146 all-purpose yards, I think it was, and definitely answered the bell against a tough Buffalo defense.
Yeah, he certainly did. My pine, I called for George Kittle, who was coming into the week. Most people had him as the wide receiver 2 on the week. And I told you that he was going to finish right around middle of the pack in an underperform type of thing. I thought he would be a little bit, closer to that back half than he was. So I'm going to take a push on that one. Not take a loss, but I'm not going to count the win on that one either. All right, let's go ahead and move in here to the shines real quick. Alex calling for the shine on Brandon Cooks and swing and a miss on that one. Who'd you have as your shine?
I took Brandon Ayuk. Barely snuck in there, right? Got the touchdown, which really kind of put him over the edge there. So I'm going to count that one as the win for Ayuk, but it was by the narrowest of margins.
Yeah, and I would also say that he shined for you as well. Certainly outperforming projections and doing well for you. Certainly worth the start there. My shine of the week was Donta Foreman, who he definitely shined and definitely outperformed there, and going to count that as a big hit on that one there as well. So right now that moves us to Alex being at 9-7. So he was running, he got that hot start and was definitely kind of came out the clubhouse fast, and he surrendered that lead that he had there to you pulled even with him at 9-7 as well. I actually pulled ahead of him this last week with the sitting at 9-5 and 2 pushes on that one. So we've got some we've got a new leader on the board there, and but it's far from over. We still got a lot of fantasy left to go here, and we got some more pine and shines for you coming up on who we think and how we're gonna rock and roll this one towards the end of the show here. All righty, let's go ahead and hit up a couple more of these questions, and then we're gonna get into our Thursday night preview here. Spear IT saying start Dulcich or Higbee. It's really easy this week. It's Higbee. Dulcich on a bye.
Yeah, don't start Dulcich. You'll get a 0. That is guaranteed this week. He will get you 0 points. Yep. So Higbee's your play here going forward after the bye week.
I'm starting Dulcich.
I think I'm starting Dulcich. Like Higbee started out really strong and then has kind of faded away as Allen Robinson has kind of started to get acclimated to this LA Rams offense. So they have not been using Higbee quite as much. So rest of season, Dulcich. But this week you definitely want to play Higbee.
Yes. Alrighty. MJ, Tyler Lockett or Tyler Boyd. So Boyd or Lockett, a battle of the Tylers here.
I'm going Lockett. The Cincinnati passing game was in shambles. And at some point, they have to realize that Jamar Chase is the difference maker there. And without him, they need to change a little bit of their offensive philosophy. And part of that is running the damn ball. Give the ball to Joe Mixon and give him the opportunity. Put the pressure on your offensive line to actually hold a block and make a hole. And don't let Joe Burrow get absolutely smacked around like he did against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that was pretty bad there. Both of those guys are going to be good plays this week, I think, for you. I think both of those guys easily finish in wide receiver 2 territory, but I do lean the Tyler Lockett route over the Tyler Boyd route as well. Randy, would y'all trade Mixon for Amon-Ra St. Brown? Depends on how deep my running back room is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, if I had the running back depth, then yeah, in a heartbeat. If it's going to leave me really short here the rest of the season, probably not. But I understand the allure of it. At least St. Brown's minus the concussion game, right? You've been pretty consistent with St. Brown, and you understand that he is going to be seeing a ton of targets from Jared Goff, and Detroit's going to be trailing in foreseeably every game the rest of the season. So St. Brown should see a ton. I'm hoping for another strong push down the end of the season like he gave us last year and kind of help propel my team in the home league. But unfortunately, I own both of them, so I have to suffer through the mix and suck here at the moment.
There you go. Alrighty. So, guys, real quick, let's cut in here and talk about some Trophy Smack real quick. And here at the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, we're all about cash and trophies. And now you can get a completely customized trophy for your league at TrophySmack.com. You can also find the link to it down in the description on the YouTube channel and the audio version of this podcast. You want a championship belt or a winner's ring? Trophy Smack has you covered there as well. Make sure that you check out TrophySmack.com and that link in the description there as well. Helps the boys out. And helps you get that customized trophy where, we all about that cash and trophies. Alrighty, Spear IT. What about Ingram? Totally forgot that Dulcich was on the bye. So he's asking about Evan Ingram or Tyler Higbee this week.
I'm going Ingram.
Yeah.
Over Higbee this week. He's just been a little bit more consistent. He seems to have caught the eye of Trevor Lawrence here a little bit. And Ingram has consistently been getting 50 to 60 yards, fell into the end zone last week, which is obviously a good thing. But I really like the flow that Ingram has had here the last couple of weeks. So I would play him over Higbee this week.
Yes. Cosign. Like it. Alrighty, Randy asking Etienne, Walker, Khalil Herbert. If you're asking who to start, it's Etienne and it's Walker. And it's not close.
Yep, I completely agree.
So you're gonna take the two guys that are the lead backs in that one. While the Bears have been running the ball a ton, you are going to see David Montgomery cut into that, and those guys anymore are splitting the timeshare pretty close to the point where they're each getting between about 15 and 17 carries a game. But Justin Fields also is eating into that workload there as well, and Justin Fields seen almost as many carries as those running backs are. So limited upside there, whereas with both Walker and Etienne, they are getting the lion's share, if not all the work. So absolutely taking the volume. MJ, trade A.J. Brown for Travis Etienne and T. Higgins. Running backs are dead. He's got Breece Hall, Najee Harris. Smash. Yep.
Yes.
Smash.
Yeah, it sucks to give up AJ Brown. He's been really good for you this season. But Etienne is on the rise, and the fact that you can get Etienne and another piece, that's a move you have to make.
Right, and T. Higgins has been pretty good for fantasy there as well. So yeah, you move out of an upper echelon elite running or wide receiver, but you're getting a running back there in Etienne that very much looks like he could finish as an RB1, and he could sneak in there before the end of the season. And T. Higgins, who looks very much like he can finish in that upper wide receiver 2 range. Yeah, it's not going to surprise me to see him still pull out like wide receiver 15 when this season's all said and done. So
here's one for you guys. Gerald Everett or Kyle Pitts? Do we believe in the Kyle Pitts resurgence?
I'm gonna take Pitts this week. I'm gonna ride. I'm gonna be willing to hop on that train and ride that hot hand 1 week here and see. But yeah, I would take the sighting. I would take that Kyle Pitts sighting and just see if I could parlay it into 2 weeks.
I hope so. I was listening to one of the Atlanta beat writers today on a show that I listened to, and he helped me regain a little bit of faith in Kyle Pitts and them understanding that maybe they do need to move him around the line a little bit more and make it a little bit harder for teams to cover him. Imagine that. They talked about what a unicorn he was coming out, and then all they do is line him up in line this season. So put him in motion, have him move a little bit, make sure he's not on press coverage every single play. So I tend to agree with that. I'm just curious your thoughts. It just happened to be something I was looking at.
I like it. Alrighty. Satober, welcome back to the chat. Satober, good to see you in here. Someone dropped B-Rob. Should I pick him up? Yeah, it's tough to say.
Who are you dropping to pick him up? I think that's the biggest. There we go.
So the squad is Herbert, Cook, Pierce, Kirk, Jefferson, Higbee, Stevenson. Benches got Pacheco, Jamal Williams, Devonta Smith, Tony, Schultz, and an open bench spot. If you got an open bench spot, go ahead and add him.
Yeah.
Adams over Kirk. I guess I'm confused here. I need to trade for wide receiver.
The upside of Devontae Adams is higher than that of Christian Kirk.
Correct.
The consistency of Christian Kirk has been better than Devontae Adams because we have seen a real couple stinkers out of this Vegas offense. We thought that they were going to be able to put it together. They came off of a bye week.
But you're getting enough upside with and enough of a ceiling shot with Jefferson already on the roster. So, yeah, I would do that. And go with 2 ceiling plays on that one. Sure. Devonta Smith's also been very consistent for you as well.
Yeah.
You got Pacheco, who looks to be kind of the starter going forward there, and Kadarius Toney. Like you've got
he's
enough.
Going to start over CEH?
I think so. I do. I do think that they're going to make that transition coming off the bye.
You heard it here first, guys.
So, but yeah, if I can do a Devontae Adams for Christian Kirk straight up, I'll make that move and not think twice about it.
Fair enough.
Spear IT asking, so this goes back to that Evan Ingram or Tyler Higbee. Should I drop Higbee for Evan Ingram? He doesn't have a spot for Ingram otherwise.
Yeah, I would. I think I make that, knowing that you have Dulcich for the rest of the season, and that's probably the guy you're going to start anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That or else you're trying to get cute, see if you can flip Higbee for something else that you need even more, and then you're playing Russian roulette anyway. But
yeah, but I mean,
I think I'm comfortable with this. I'm not. The Rams' offense has just not looked good, so I'm comfortable with it.
Right, and Tyler Higbee, on the season right now is in half-point PPR scoring is tight end 16. You're not going to be able to get much for a tight end 16 on that one. Like you're going to get a wide receiver 4, 5 type of deal, a running back 5. Like you're going to be getting a bench player that's not going to, that you could just as easily probably pick up off the waiver wire for something comparable. So, I'd also make that move too, especially with the Dulcich play. And I'm kind of all in on Dulcich the rest of the season. What do y'all think about Aaron Rodgers versus Detroit this week? I think he's going to have a good game. Do I think that we see a bounce back Aaron Rodgers? No, I don't. But I do think that he'll have a decent enough game where you'll see him flirt with fringe QB1 this week.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he'd flirt with it. If Lazard comes back, that helps him, right? Dobbs had a pretty decent week last week. Who knows what the deal is with Christian Watson, whether he's going to be back or not. So,
Aaron Jones. I misread that. I heard Aaron and I went with Aaron Rodgers. He's asking for Aaron Jones.
Oh, Jones, yeah.
And then he said it's specified. Yeah, I think he'll have a great game. It looks like Green Bay is more than happy to try and run the ball and try and move some things that way. And Aaron Jones showed something this last week. Detroit's been bad against the run. I like it. I think that he'll have. I think he'll have another good week. Do I think that he gets, running back 1 consideration this week? No, I don't know that I'm willing to jump all the way up there, but I think that, again, he's going to flirt with RB1.
Yeah, and well, if he has another output like he did last week, he just needs to fall into the end zone, and he's right there.
True.
I mean, so the Green Bay's been doing a good job riding Jones while he's hot. So I think that that's a pretty safe bet here at this point.
I like it. Zaid, first time I think I've seen Zaid in the chat. Welcome in. Traded away Cook and McCole for JT and Judy. Did I win? They've also got CMC and Patterson. So when Patterson comes back off of IR, I think you're looking pretty good there. McCole, Judy is an upgrade from McCole, but I don't know that you got enough. Like JT just hasn't looked Jonathan Taylor. The fact that they're moving on from their offensive coordinator at this point as well, like that leaves some things up there. They've got a quarterback that, quite frankly, nobody thought would really see a starting role outside of a massive injury in front of him. I don't know that I necessarily trust the Colts offense at this point.
Yeah, it's tough because JT's just been nicked up this season, right? Left one game early, has been dinged up, re-injured his ankle, sat out a week. all that type of thing. Cook, after that hot game last week against Arizona, I understand the allure to it on name power alone. Yeah, you absolutely won on consistent fantasy output. I think it's probably a lot closer than what you probably wanted it to be when you either offered or accepted it. But I think you can live with it, right? You have CMC, who is kind of back to being that running back and a half with the way San Francisco is using him. Obviously, he's down this week, so that's something that you're going to have to navigate through this week, and Patterson being on bye. So you can make it work, and I understand why you did it.
Yeah, the more I look at that, the more I probably would have stayed with Cook on that one. But keep in mind, right, we haven't seen Cook miss any games, and we have yet to see him play his entire career and make it through a full season. Inevitably he seems to always miss 3 or 4. So, you could see some things there, but outside of week 1, Jonathan Taylor hasn't finished in above running back 2 yet this season, right? Week 1, he finishes the 3rd overall running back, and then his next best finish was Robbie 26 on a week, with lots of weeks in there, and missing a couple. So he has been almost unusable for you in a lot of fantasy leagues there, to the point where you drafted him number 1 overall, and you're debating some weeks whether or not you can even start him as a flex. So, whereas Dalvin Cook, coming off of 3 straight games, being a top 10 back or better. So, I can still see why you did it. You did upgrade at wide receiver, and you very well could see Jonathan Taylor come alive here this back half and really do some good things for you. Jamal Charles, trade Stevenson and DK for Hill. I already have Cook, Walker, Swift, Foreman, PPR. Yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I would agree. Stevenson and
it might be a little rich, but
yep, you do it. You do it to get Tyreek. Yep.
And Tyreek has been phenomenal, week in, week out. Even when Tyreek doesn't find a way to get into the end zone, he still puts up monster games. Like that Miami offense just seems to put up enough points for him through the air, and consistently doing it well for it. So, yeah. Zaid, thank you. Yeah, I offered it before Cook played. Forgot to take it off the trade block. Appreciate it, guys. You are most welcome. And again, guys, if you have any questions, anything like that, let's throw them out there. Let's talk about these things. Let's get you guys ready to rock and roll here towards week 9. And Kevin, let's go ahead and head over into the Thursday night matchup here. We've got the Eagles and the Texans playing each other. The Eagles favored by 13. The over-under on this one is 44. What are your thoughts on this game?
I like the Eagles to cover, and I like the over. Like Philadelphia's defense has been good. They still let teams come back in a little bit towards the end, so I think that helps with kind of the backdoor cover. But the Eagles alone could put up 30-plus points. Houston just doesn't really pose much of a threat here. So I think Philly wins running away. I'm going to take the over just because that Philly team's a lot of fun to watch right now, and they could put up 35 by halftime. Excuse me. So I think this will be entertaining for fantasy purposes just because so many Eagles are playing, and those are all fantasy relevant guys. But outside of that, there's nothing really to look forward to on the Houston side. I think Dameon Pierce is going to have a down week against Philly's defensive line, and Davis Mills is going to be under pressure early and often.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I'm also going to take the Eagles to cover, and I'm going to take the over as well. In fact, Alex is on the same boat there as well, saying that he thinks the Eagles will cover. He's going to take the over. Alex even put in the doc here that he thinks that Philly might put up 44 points on their own, and I don't know that I disagree with that thought. Like they've got enough firepower that they could put up and cover the over-under by themselves. Do I think that they put up that many points? No. I think that you're probably closer to the mark there, saying that they'll score somewhere in the 30s. And I think that is probably realistic that we can see Houston put up about 10 points here. So I think that this game's not going to be very close, but hopefully we at least get to see points scored in this Thursday night matchup here. Alrighty, Spear IT is asking, is Dameon Pierce a good start versus the Eagles? It's a bit of a tougher start, I would say, this week. The Eagles front seven looks really good. They just added another pass rusher on that one there. They've been pretty good against the run. So it's going to be tight, but if you've got Dameon Pierce, he's still worth a start. You just got to temper your expectations. Instead of him being in that RB1 pretty consistently, he's probably going to be an RB2 this week.
Yeah, co-sign with that. It's just going to be a difficult start for him. He should see the volume to put forth fantasy production. It's just going to be the yardage that comes from it. He's going to have to break one loose or fall into the end zone for him to kind of really fulfill his role in your roster this week.
Right, but it still wouldn't surprise me to see him get 20 carries and get 75 to 80 yards. And then he'll get some passing work there as well. So definitely a tougher matchup there. All right, let's go ahead and head on into the touchdown dance. Touchdown dance, we played that over on monkeyknifefight.com. You can play along with us over there. And if you use the promo code GOBFF when signing up, you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100 for new users over there. So again, go to monkeyknifefight.com, sign up using the promo code GOBFF. One, it helps the boys out. Two, it certainly helps get you more money to play on the site over there. So Thursday night football, touchdown dance here. And for those of you that have not played touchdown dance or don't really know what we're talking about, touchdown dance is a game that we're going to play. And you basically pick 3 players from this game to see who falls into the end zone, see who's going to score the touchdown. You're calling your shot on that one. If the players that you pick, and you also pick your pricing on that one as well. So if you pick a ×2 prize, you need your players to score 2.5 or more touchdowns. A ×3 prize, 3.5 or more touchdowns, and a ×6 prize, 4.5 or more touchdowns. Kevin, who you got? Who you picking for a touchdown dance play here?
I'm going Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, and AJ Brown ×3 this week. I think we see 4 touchdowns between the 4 guys against the lowly Houston Texans.
I like it. That is calling your shot. I've also got 3 Eagles players that I took for my card here as well. Which interestingly enough, we only had 1 overlap on this one. I took Jalen Hurts. I think it's very plausible that he'll run one in. I took Dallas Goedert on this one, and I took AJ Brown as well. So the only overlap we've got there is AJ Brown. I'm gonna play a little bit more on the safer side here and call for only 2.5 or more touchdowns at a ×2 prize there. But again, guys, you can play along with us over at monkeyknifefight.com using that promo code GOBFF and rock and roll that there with us. And again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about that. But while we're waiting for some more comments to come in, more questions to come in, let's go ahead and hit up the Pine and the Shine for week 9. And with the Pine and the Shine, we're calling our shots, players that we think are going to underperform their projections here for the Pine, and who we think is potential benching alert here. Alex is thinking that Alvin Kamara is going to be a Pine here, saying that the Eagles have the 5th best run defense and that Kamara he thinks has been struggling lately. Who you got for your Pine?
My Pine this week is going to be Jonathan Taylor going up against the New England Patriots. They take away what you do best. They're not going to worry about Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. They're going to worry about Jonathan Taylor and this run game. So I think we are looking for a pretty bad week for JT owners, and he is a Pine.
Yeah, I like that call. I like that call a lot. My Pine is actually going to take place for the Thursday game, and I'm going to call for Brandon Cooks to be a Pine here, right? He's kind of in that flex consideration for a lot of folks. Some folks looking at potentially starting him as our wide receiver 2. I think that you need to pivot on that, and you need to move off of that one, find some different options there. Again, I think that Philadelphia is going to be in that backfield constantly, and that Davis Mills is going to have a hard time, being able to find Brandon Cooks consistently and down the field on this one. And I think that you've got some better options out there, and you should probably take those ones. All righty, let's go ahead and move over to the Shine. And the Shine is where we're calling our shots, thinking that these guys are going to have some good games here and definitely outperform their projections. Alex is calling for Gerald Everett to be a Shine versus Atlanta. He says that the Falcons have the worst pass defense, and the Chargers are coming off a bye this week and looking to have a pretty good game. Kevin, who do you got as your Shine?
My shine this week is going to be Miles Sanders going up against the Houston Texans. So much like with the monkey knife fight segment that we just got done running, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I think my shine for the week is going to be Miles Sanders.
I like it. I like that one a lot, actually. My shine, I have got a. I'm gonna stick with the wide receiver here again, and I'm gonna call for Jacoby Myers, who's taking on Indianapolis there. Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker is likely to miss this week. And I think that Jacoby Myers is going to be able to put up a fairly decent performance for you. Right now, he's kind of sitting at that wide receiver 2 flex type of option in a lot of plays there. And I think that he will be a very good play for you coming down the stretch and outperform his projections here. So that's how I'm rocking and rolling this one here. Any other thoughts on the Pines or the Shines?
No, I need to get a couple of these right and bounce back. I'm not doing a very good job defending my championship from last year.
That's okay. I'm coming in guns blazing here. So we'll see if I can't hold you off here. I do think that you'll pick up at least one on Alex though this week. I will throw that one out there.
I'm hoping to pick up more than that.
So fair enough. All righty. Let's go ahead, and we got a question coming in here from Terry. Terry, good to see you in the chat again. Thoughts on Michael Pittman and James Robinson? I'm assuming that he means rest of season here. I'm not overly bullish on either rest of season. I don't know that I trust Sam Ehlinger to be able to feed Michael Pittman enough. I think that you're going to see the Colts lean far more on their run game going forward and utilize that more so to the point where Pittman may get 6 or 7 targets a game, which you're going to see him probably relegated into much deeper wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 territory rest of season. James Robinson, I think that you will see him get more run going forward than what we saw this last week, but I don't know that that's going to be enough for him to do what he was doing down in Jacksonville to really start the season off. So while I think that James Robinson probably does okay for you, I'm not super bullish on him rest of season, and I think that the Jets are going to he's got some limited upside. I do really like his weeks 15, 16, 17 playoff schedule for you, but some tough matchups before you get there.
I think Robinson will find a role. Not that he could. He will find a role with the Jets. I think that they really enjoyed running those 2 running back sets before Breece Hall went down. So I do think that leads towards some run for Robinson. Man, oh man. Pittman's still going to see 7 or 8 targets a game. It's just a matter how good those targets can be. Ehlinger tried to drive it down the field to him there at the end of the Washington game last week. A penalty, called it back, or called one of the deep plays back, which would have put you another, 2.2 points or really 3.2 points on the board for Pittman and made his output a little bit more favorable for you. So I think I like Pittman by a hair, only because I at least know he is the number 1 and still the number 1 in Indianapolis. Robinson, there's a lot more wait and see. And Carter does a pretty decent job in that Jets backfield. So it's just finding how Robinson complements him.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Jaden, thoughts on A-Rob with the cup injury? The only time that the Rams seem to try and utilize Allen Robinson is when they get inside the 10-yard line and they try and force feed him a red zone look. Like, other than that, I've got Allen Robinson on a few of my rosters, and if I can shop him and get rid of him on that one, I'm absolutely going to do it. But I don't know that you're going to see much upside. Van Jefferson coming back, I think, also limits that one there as well. So I think Van Jefferson's the guy to try and go get in that offense if Kupp's going to miss time.
I don't think Kupp's injury is going to be that serious.
No.
They say dodged a bullet. Robinson is getting more acclimated to that offense, though, right? We've seen the last 2 weeks he's been a little bit more involved. Obviously, coming off the bye week, they clearly worked on that. We saw it here a little bit more in the San Francisco game. So I think Robinson continues to get better, but I don't know if we're going to get to the point where he was as productive as OBJ or Robert Woods have been in that offense playing alongside Cooper Kupp.
Right. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that one. So, all righty, guys. Well, if you have any other questions, any other thoughts, let's throw them out there. Let's go ahead and get those questions answered for you. That's about what we've got on the docket here to talk about tonight. So if you guys have some other questions or thoughts, let's go ahead and help you guys get those ready to rock and roll here. And if not, we'll start signing off. And Kevin, any thoughts out there as far as going into this weekend? Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
No, I think there's going to be some fun fantasy matchups coming up this week, and probably for some different reasons. But the Philly Houston game, while the matchup's not that appealing for fantasy owners and Philly owners specifically, that should be a good game, right? It should give you a way to start your football week off on a positive note and feel pretty good about yourself. It'll be interesting to see if Green Bay can bounce back and kind of get on the right track here against the Lions and try and climb to 4-5 and make a push down the stretch here as the Vikings really try and salt away this division. And then I think another one that could be fun is Seattle and Arizona. We thought this game was going to be a little bit more high scoring than what it was a couple weeks ago when they played in Seattle, but typically you don't have the same type of outcome with divisional opponents. One's a tight game, one's a little bit more loose and gunslinger. So I'm hoping that this could actually be the high scoring affair that we wanted it to be. And then obviously star power with the Rams and Tampa Bay, right? A lot of big names, two teams that were in the NFC Championship game last year. No, NFC quarterfinals last year, divisional round, sorry, because the Rams played the Niners in the championship game. But this could be make or break time for both teams, right? Both are sitting sub 500, and they need to start making a push. Tampa Bay is only a game out in the division, which is a good thing, and LA is a game and a half back in their division, just coming off the bye week. So it'll be a little interesting starting to get these playoff pushes halfway through the season now. Teams are going to start really turning it on here.
Right. And that's one of those that when we were sitting here before the season, I don't know that anybody was calling for Seattle to be leading the division or Atlanta to be leading the division out there, and teams kind of come to play there. Some interesting things there. It's absolutely. Oh, we do have a question down here. As soon as I can get it pulled up here. Captain Joe King over on YouTube. Hi, loving the stream. Quick questions. The team is Justin Fields, the RBs Eckler, Henry, wide receivers Devontae, D-Hop, Kadarius Toney, Taysom Hill. Have the option of trading D-Hop for Chubb. Should I do it in a full PPR?
No, I understand the allure of doing it, but you don't have enough wide receiver strength.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, and as Chubb, as good as Chubb has been, Eckler and Henry have been just as good. Eckler with receiving out of the backfield, you want all those. Henry has been more involved in the passing game than seemingly ever before, and Chubb doesn't catch a whole lot of passes. His is efficiency on the ground, so you're not really gaining anything there. And D-Hop has been peppered with targets his first couple weeks back. Devontae Adams is too streaky right now. In years past, I might have given you a different answer. But honestly, the best advice I can give you is try and look for a tight end upgrade over Taysom Hill.
Right, and you should be able to find that. You could probably I would stream Robert Tonyan, who's available in most leagues this week, and I'd go out and pick up Greg Dulcich rest of the season type of thing. That's how I would look to try and improve your team there. I'm also same boat you are. I would not looking to go through and change out DeAndre Hopkins, who's been getting 14 and 13 targets, well over 100 yards in each of his 2 games there. Like, I think that you are better off standing put and not making that trade and just upgrading through the waiver wire on the tight end side of things. Terry, Jamal Williams or Gabe Davis this week at flex full point PPR?
Man, oh man. I think I'm going with Gabe Davis. Like, I think this is another statement game for Buffalo, right? Like, the Jets are, I guess, kind of 2 full games back with already having their bye week. So truly, it's a game and a half back. But Buffalo wins this game, and they kind of cement themselves as the leader in the clubhouse here for the back half of the season. Jets are coming off a tough loss to New England, but I think we're going to see some more of that. I don't think that the Jets' offense is dynamic enough to keep Buffalo or to put enough pressure on Buffalo to keep scoring points. So I think it's Davis for me this week, and could see him, try and hit a deep one since Sauce is going to be on Diggs most of the game.
Yeah, I do like that. Terry, I'm going to tell you it's a depends answer. And for me, it really depends on what you need out of that deal. If you're going for a floor play, I'm going to go with Jamal Williams. If you need a floor play and you're projected to win by a whole bunch and all of that, and you just need to make sure that you're putting points up there, I'm going to go with Jamal Williams for the floor play. But Gabe Davis certainly has the higher ceiling on that one. And if you're projected to lose, you're projected to be down on that one, and you need that upshot, Gabe Davis is your guy. So that's how I'm looking at that one, and how I'm going to be looking at doing that one. Floor play, Williams, ceiling shot, Gabe Davis. All righty. Well, guys, if you have any other thoughts out there, let's go ahead and throw them out there. We'll get you the questions answered. And if not, we're going to call it a night here. And so we already told y'all already that if you have any questions in the meantime, we go live again on Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be going through all the games over the weekend, hitting the lines, hitting the over, the unders. We got the player props, all that good stuff. And it's been a lot of fun there. We'll also be answering any questions that you got for your fantasy lineups and rosters on that one as well. But in the meantime, if you got a question that you need an answer to, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. You can also find us on the YouTube, the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Comment, leave questions over there. We get back to all of the channels just as fast as we can to get you answers as quickly as possible there. And so, guys, I do think that that's going to do it for us. And thank you very much out there for tuning in, listening in, all that good stuff. Again, best way to support this independent podcast, head over to the YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, and tell a buddy, tell a friend, have them go subscribe as well. Certainly helps us out there. But he's Kevin. I'm Derek. Oh, I just saw a question come in here. Terry, you got it in like 5 more seconds, and we would have had to answer you in the comments there. But let's hit this one up. Justin Fields, top 5 quarterback rest of the season. I don't know that I can subscribe to that. I think he can be top 5 week to week, but not rest of the season. No. Any other thoughts on that one, Kevin? That's one.
I think he can definitely be in that RB1 category, especially with the way that this offense is the last couple of weeks has been formatted more towards his skill set. It looks like the game's slowing down for him a little bit, but he just doesn't throw the ball consistently enough to be able to tell you top 5.
Yeah, I would agree. All righty. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.